it comes to brows, I'm an iron oxide girl all the way. I just am. When it comes to brows, I don't want my work lasting 10 years. I just don't. When pigment stays in facial skin, up in that area for that long, there's a higher risk of it turning, right? Any color is going to turn. Industrial car paint is going to turn, turn. Tattoos can turn. We see red tattoos turn pink. We see even tattoos turn color sometimes. I've got a yellow in one of my tattoos that's turning this funky color. So and women age, they get plastic surgery. If they're not doing plastic surgery, then their eyebrows drop, their facial skin drops, it droops. The brow can end up, too low if it's lasting forever. So we want our brow work to last a reasonable amount of time. For me, 2 to 4 years is a reasonable amount of time. And for me and my clients, it's important that that pigment slowly fades out. So I have the opportunity to go in and revamp the shape, lift the arches, raise the tails a little bit. And it also helps ensure that I'm not going to end up with a gray brow or a green brow or a blue brow or a red brow or an orange brow. Because like I said, the longer pigment sits in skin, the higher propensity that it could turn color. So for me, I prefer the iron oxides for brow work. When we were developing Loaded, I got off iron oxides and I used Loaded pretty exclusively for about 3 years. So I could really learn and understand organics in the brow area. And of course, so I could develop the colors and, formulate and put out a great set of organic colors for those, that love them. And I think we did that with Loaded. Once in a great while, if I got a super oily client, and I just can't get aqua, the iron oxide in their skin, I'm not going to sit there and beat up that skin. I'm going to stop what I'm doing. I'm going to get out a matching color in the Loaded line, which is organic, and I'm going to continue that client with an organic color rather than an iron oxide. So I do that from time to time, and sometimes it was the best decision, and it helps. It just helps. Sometimes an iron oxide just is not going well. It's not implanting well. And I am not the type of artist to sit there and try to force pigment in someone's skin and, do pass after pass after pass. I something, in my formula, something in my setup is not working. So I'm going to stop and I'm going to change. And a lot of times it will be the pigment. I'll change to one of the Loaded organic colors. And many times that will make a difference. Sometimes I'll go to a bigger needle. I'll go from an 8 shader, or maybe I'm using a 5 shader. I'll go from a 5 shader to 8 shader. I'll change things up. Maybe I slow down my machine and slow down my movements. You have to change things up when the skin's not taking color as you want it to take, right? Because something in your formula, something in your setups, not working with that skin. So stop, change things up, try again, And a lot of times you will have much better success. And then there are times, I will fully admit, no matter what the hell you do, that skin is just going to be an asshole. It's just not going to take well no matter what we do. And those skin types exist out there, right? They absolutely exist. I think there are people walking around that are not great candidates for permanent makeup for whatever reason. Sometimes we can figure it out, and sometimes we just have no clue. We'll never figure it out. Their skin is not going to take well. The pigment's not going to last well during the 7-day healing process, or it's going to all fall out, even if you do everything right. The most ideal needle, the most ideal pigment choice, your tattoo, you're putting it in proper depth. Everything you do is the most ideal and perfect choice for that particular client and skin type, and yet that skin is not accepting pigment. It's just resistant to the procedure. And we do come across those. It's rare, but they do exist. If you do enough clients in the course of the year, you're going to have a handful of them in the course of a year, right? You know, but we never know. We don't know until we get in there and we work on them, right? We don't know their skin until we work on them and see them healed. Once we do a procedure and we see them healed, now we have a better understanding, maybe not a full understanding, a thorough understanding, but we have a better understanding of their skin, what their skin does, how it heals, how it pulls color. And so we can make, necessary changes and adjustments for the follow-up appointment and moving forward if we're not getting the results we want after that first heal. And then sometimes we change nothing ever on that client because everything we did that first session, they healed fantastical. And so you're going to, write down all your notes, and that's going to be your secret sauce for that particular client moving forward. Another thing that I take into consideration, I think we should all think about, is these skin types that are super ruddy, right? Ruddy, red, oily, super pink, sun damaged. You guys know the type. Super challenging. And those skin types, every single one of them that I just mentioned, pull gray. We all know that by now. We all know that. They pull gray. And they can heal any beautiful pigment out of any good high quality pigment brand, gray. Sometimes, even if you're adding warmth, a warm modifier. A lot of us, including myself, have worked on skin types that are so ruddy, so pink, they pull so much gray, even adding orange to the target color, they still healed kind of gray or ashy. We didn't get that rich brown. Sometimes you cannot obtain a rich brown on those skin types. So my thinking is organics, right, are made with carbon, black carbon. Black carbon has the longest staying power of all colorants, both in iron oxides and organics. And as we've watched the organics age the last several years, a lot of them are aging to the gray and blues. Not on every single client, of course, but on a lot of clients, we're seeing organics age blue or gray. So the way my mind works is if you have a client, if we know that organics have the potential to age gray or grayish blue because they are made with carbon, black carbon, and black carbon outlasts all the other colorants in that particular color. In my mind, it makes sense not to use a organic color on a skin type that also has the potential to pull gray. So if I have a ruddy client, a sun damaged client, a super pink client that I know has the potential to pull gray, possibly even a lot of gray, I am not going to use a loaded color on her. I'm not going to use an organic because organics have that black carbon. And so you got a skin type that has a propensity to pull gray, and you have organic pigments that have the propensity to pull gray. So when you combine those two, I mean, are we not just setting ourselves up for gray? It's almost like a double whammy. And as I said, as the longer pigment sits in skin, the bigger chance it is going to ash out just because of lifestyle. It doesn't even mean the pigment's a bad pigment, for Pete's sake. It just sits in skin, and with all the outside exposure, sun and retinols and swimming pools and just everything, medications, just everything we do. Some people we're even talking now about how stress, can affect the pigment in the skin. So, I don't want to use a pigment on those type of skins where that pigment's going to last years and years and years. On those type skins, I want the pigment to fade out in 2 or 3 years. It has less of a chance to start, turning gray. I like to use the organics on skin types that are not super cool. They can be cool, like slightly cool to moderately cool, but I'm certainly not going to use an organic on like someone super cool. In Beyond the Epidermis, that whole educational color theory skin tone packet we put out, in that I identify cool level 1, cool level 2, cool level 3. So on those cool level 3s that are difficult skin types, difficult to get a rich brown, difficult to keep it from aging gray, even with an iron oxide. On those skin types, I am not going to use an organic that has carbon in it. I'm just not. So, and we did a podcast on that a few weeks ago with Michelle Hefner.
Yes.
Yeah. And she's been experimenting. Was it 2 weeks ago?
42.
Episode 42. And she, loves organics, loves iron oxides, and was just playing with the both and seeing what did what on what skin types. And she really wanted to come on the podcast and talk about like her findings. And she found, as I discovered, on those skin types that pull a lot gray, she was getting more gray healed results, and it was aging gray much more often when she used an organic color rather than if she used an iron oxide. So, the more we're in this industry and the more artists that come in this industry, the more artists that become, thinkers and strategic and do these, experiment and want to figure things out and learn and share, we start gathering like all this information. 4 or 5 years ago, we were not talking about this, the different skin types that an organic might be better on, or an iron oxide might be better on. But now that there's so many artists out there using both, we're starting to collect, this data. We're starting to hear from artists. Artists are starting to talk about, what they're seeing and what they're finding with their clients. And so, which is beautiful, because we're starting to learn so much more about organics and iron oxides and what the best skin types are going to be for an organic pigment, and which skin type is going to be the best skin type for an iron oxide, and utilizing both. Don't pick one or the other. Don't box yourself in and limit yourself to only one. As PMU artists, we should definitely be taking advantage of both iron oxides and organics. They're both, they both are very, very valuable to this industry and to the work we do as PMU artists. 100%.